a very unknown country, and I wanted support and somebody to get me in the right places at the right time. I also wanted to stay places that were going to be authentically Japanese rather than just any hotel in any city and any town, and to be able to have Japanese food at every meal and not just on special occasions.
So we knew that Oku Japan had some wonderful support. This is something, even though we speak a bit of the language, we didn't feel like we could easily do this on our own, so it's just great to have the support, the maps, and all the information that Oku Japan has supplied.
The instructions were really good, like introduction to Japan even. That was because we didn't do much research before we left, so that was quite helpful. And then on the sort of the trip notes and the kind of arrangements in the towns in particular was really useful. And even having a picture of where you were staying, sometimes that was good if you didn't understand Japanese, because they don't have necessarily English signs. So being able to point to the building, yes, that must be it. It made it just gave you that second level of reassurance. It was good that it was all up to date, because there were a few changes to the track and they were reflected in the notes. On the walk itself, everything was super signposted. Like if you went 200 metres without a sign saying turn left here or something like that. So.
My wife and I, Linda and I, lived and worked in Japan some years ago and just fell in love with the country. And we wanted to come back here and do something that was active and gave us a little more insight into the culture than we already had. Let me start by saying that my wife and I have done some strenuous hiking in the past. This kind of falls, I think, in the moderate category, so it's pretty much doable by anyone who's reasonably fit, and we're very much enjoying the walking that we've done so far. It's through forested areas. We're seeing lots of little oji, which are sort of mini shrines, learning a lot about the ancient history of Japan. So yeah, it's been a great experience so far. The Kumano Kodo is so well marked that walking without a guide is really not a problem. We have the reassurance of having Oku Japan's wonderful information in our back pocket, but having said that, you could pretty much do this without relying heavily on that information. So it's a great experience in that regard.
What really comes to mind first of all is the quality of the food that we had. Breakfasts were interesting and Japanese, and the food was just such high quality, very, very fresh dinner, fresh materials for dinner in the evening. And I think part of the reason that I chose Oxalis was because all of the meals were going to be Japanese, whereas some other companies, they stay in mainly Western hotels and there are special Japanese meals out, whereas I really wanted to go and have more of what I hoped was going to be a proper Japanese experience by having Japanese food all the time, and it worked. It was great.
I was surprised at how traditionally Japanese they still are. Like I said, the food was excellent. In fact, sleeping on tatami mats and futons, and when you came in, they always had like hot tea for you in a thermos. It's there was a routine which is very different to sort of style of accommodation you get back in Australia. Much more personable, much more attentive, and even with a language barrier, tried to make you feel at home.
The accommodations have been super, especially the food. Linda tells me I'm a non-stop eating machine, so I'm in my element here with the wonderful food that we've had at the inns. Some wonderful baths at the Minshikus, the inns that we've stayed at, and we're certainly looking forward to trying a hot spring tonight. We're going to end up at Yunomine, and having been in Japanese hot springs before, this is an experience that we're really kind of relishing. Well, our first day we ended up on a sort of a small hilltop village called Takahara, and it was just fantastic being greeted by the wonderful, very friendly innkeeper, John. And we immediately sat down and imbibed some very nice cold Japanese beer, and shortly thereafter we were able to head off into the bath, which is this gorgeous stone bath, very traditional Japanese bath. So beer, a nice hot soak, what more can you ask for?